Oh, I have to press go. I have to press got it. Okay.
So we're just going to go live now. It's just going on. Nice. Okay, so. Hello and welcome everybody to Starpeace Wednesdays. Here we are on the, well, in the Lionsgate portal where so many amazing things are happening, including the fact that this wonder being, CJ Harrington, popped up in my sphere of consciousness literally this weekend, thanks to our lovely Gemma, who is our quantum connector. And I found out through Gemma that CJ is behind the world's first Facebook play, and it's called The Now. And we are having this conversation today because although we're coming from very different places, we've only just met, we've just had a little bit of a conversation, our intention is the same. And it's just, this is what I just love about this and about Starpeace being about seeding a new earth narrative, a positive narrative in the collective consciousness of humanity. That doesn't mean we all believe exactly the same thing. It just allows us to open up to the idea that the light has won in our universe, that peace on earth is entirely possible, and that we can actually co-create that through our own personal interaction with the world around us and our own experience. So before I go any further, CJ and I have something in common. Sometimes you'll see me looking away when I'm receiving messages, and CJ also generally communicates not through eye contact, so he'll tend to look away. His mum is blind. He's been telling me all about this, and perhaps we'll go into that a little bit as well, because there is a charity that CJ supports very passionately. And yeah, basically we're here just to open our hearts to learn about things we didn't even know existed. So let's start with this idea of this now, this Facebook play. Would you like to introduce yourself and the play, the concept behind the play, CJ?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will. Okay. I'll take back the wonder being. I don't feel comfortable being called a wonder being. It's very nice of you, but it doesn't.
You take it if you like. You leave it if you like.
But yeah, the concept of the now play is so in terms of how it's working, it's important. I think it's important to mention that it's not what you might imagine when you say Facebook play. It's not like a stage play that's being live broadcast at the point at which it's being performed. It's like an hour and a half long that you watch there and then. It's a live faked reality for 6 weeks, exploring the arrival of compassionate, collaborative aliens.
Nice.
Succinctly speaking, yeah.
Cool. So now, well, that's star families coming and supporting us, but let's just carry on. You go.
Yeah. Okay. We've got 8 performers from all the way around the world with global performance. We've got about 10 and growing background characters who are filling the world up as well with information. Over the course of the 6 weeks, we'll be posting every single day in the group. It's all taking place inside a Facebook group, which is the stage effectively, which is a public group, so it gets pushed out to other audience members as well. And we all the 8 performers will be posting every day things that further the narrative of the story. Now, the narrative of the story is what's, for me, is very, very important. It's rooted in all of everything that I've ever been through in my entire life, everything that I've ever thought, all the problems I've faced, all the problems I've seen in the world, and all the positive experiences as well. So the narrative is it's really important for me, but I feel like it's important for others as well, which is why we're doing it in the way we're doing it. The narrative being the aliens that turn up. It's not really a normal alien arrival. Now, we are 2.5 weeks into the story now, with 3.5 weeks left. So I'll try not to give away the end of the story, but I will give away what has happened to a degree so far. So if anybody joins in now, they don't feel like they've got too much catching up to do, but they can. There's a catch-up pages where they can read every single post like they were reading a book, dip into it as much as they want. They can sit down and catch up. But so far, what's happened is we tied it into the James Webb Telescope launch and first publication of pictures. We faked some news articles in the group of arrivals of strange objects, and then on the Monday after the prologue week, we were greeted by a group of aliens called the Now, or that's what we felt it was, a group of aliens called the Now at the time. And they informed us that some seeds had landed in Earth, and that in a few days those seeds would grow up to be beautiful trees that we could use to explore their vast alien network of worlds. That's what the NOW stands for, network of worlds. And collaborate with them as well. They had a few specific things to inform us about the way that their worlds and their society works, and that is the intention. The whole intention of the story is that the way that they work, the way that the aliens in this connected network of planets works, network of worlds works, is a complete and entire reframing of everything that we predominantly do on Earth, certainly in the Western culture. So it's fully collaborative, where we're very, very much competitive. For instance, one of the facts about the way they work is that they never developed weapons or anything like that. Instead of going down that route, they developed everything that can heal and fix and mend to the same degree and the same speed as we can. So the minute somebody turns up and attacks them, they just go mend everything. You know, it's a complete and total reframing of everything that we do. And that's how that's what happens. Is they say, hello, we're here. It's not an alien arrival like you might imagine it from War of the Worlds, which started the trend of all alien arrivals being big fights and big wars that the humans win. It is an alien arrival where they say, hello, nobody's here, we haven't turned up, the trees are on your world and you can come and see us if you like, and we might come and see you, and you can collaborate with us, and those trees give you complete freedom of movement, and what's more, no one can take that away from you. That freedom of movement, you teleport using the trees, connected to obviously to our pagan knowledge of Earth's trees being true portals, using the connections to the mycelium network. So the way our trees on Earth work with the mycelium network, be able to exchange data and information and nutrients between all the trees on Earth. And interestingly, also, our trees know which are their offspring. They actually know, and they share more nutrients with those other trees. So these alien trees, they connect all the alien planets together through a light network. Works the same way as a mycelium network, but it's a light network that we then travel through using the trees and go to the other planets. And the interest in the story, the challenge, the tension in the story is around the control aspects of our world, trying to stop all of us enjoying and collaborating and shifting to this new world. I won't say too much about that, because that's how the story develops, and that's the real interest for me in the story. And if I'll say one other thing, that's the real humour for me in the story, because it's supposed to be a sci-fi comedy, to a degree a comedy, but the real humour for me is in what happens when the control entities of the world try to stop us having the freedom. We've got some really great characters in the story already. We've got a really good selfish guy who's trying to get everything he can out of the collaborative aliens. His story takes up he's got a lovely story. We've got somebody who is the voice of all the control networks and trying to say we should be doing this, we shouldn't be doing this, and trying to stop us all. And their story takes an interesting turn as well. We've got some people who are naturally collaborative and just enjoying it, and some people who are a little bit subversive in the way that they deal with the control elements. So we try to cover all the different aspects of society there as well, so that people come along the journey with us.
And they can recognize themselves basically, and recognize the different elements. Hopefully, shadow and light, yeah.
Bit caricature-y, intentional on purpose, so it's not too dangerous, because of course we're having some real arguments in the group, like it's real social media, you know, because it's a play on social media, and it's using the way social media works to perform. So instead of standing up and performing, you know, we'll have comment conversations and arguments and stuff and discussions in the comments of posts and in the group, and we'll do video selfies about something that's just happened to us that might have been scary or worrying. So we're completely using the model of social media to perform this play in the same way that, you know, Wells did War of the Worlds, and he used the radio style to perform that, in the same way that Dickens, you know, first publicized novels using serialized them in magazines and stuff. So, and it's important that we're doing that. So the other thing that I think you were really interested in as well, Rosie, is the way that we're, in doing that, shifting the use of social media as well. And for me, that's really important, because I see that social media, it isn't a factual forum, but it's perceived as factual by most people who use it. Everything you see on there, you take as real and true, and you engage with it as though it were real and true. And I think that's one of the key ways in which it holds a power. Yeah. And I think once you start doing things that admit that they're creative and they're lies, and say, hello, we're over here lying, having fun and enjoying and telling you the story, you immediately then seed the doubt into the rest of the factual aspects of that environment, and you immediately open the door to other people admitting that they're lying about what they're saying, and all the people who are, you know, doing their photos of their beautiful holidays and stuff, they can admit them, they can feel free to go, this isn't actually all of me. And in doing that, I hope, in any small way, that we chip away at that kind of view that everything on social media is real.
That's, I mean, this is, we kind of talked about using, I don't want to get things kicking off in the words that we're saying, but using FB against itself in a way that allows, if you like, an artificial world, a virtual reality to be seen as a virtual reality, and you're using another virtual reality to showcase that, and then that opens up the doorway of, well, what virtual reality would I like to create if I've got all the power to do it? So this is so aligned, and it's what really excites me. I said this off camera, was that only yesterday I was talking about, how the game of life in my perception has shifted from a chess game of duality, of good and bad, and all that kind of thing, and now it's this puzzle, this paradise earth puzzle, where we're all a piece of the puzzle, every one of us is. And it's very much about recognizing that we're not going to necessarily see eye to eye with the extreme of the puzzle pieces away from us. We'll feel much more resonance with those with us, but if you take the bird's eye view, you'll see we're all basically saying the same thing. It's just our own expression of it, our unique expression. And it is to bring balance and harmony and let love and light win. What I love when you were talking about the seeds of the alien trees is, like, in our community, we talk about star seeds, as, when I say wonder beings as a way of explaining this, is a consciousness that's coming to a lower density to remind that lower density that there is a choice, right? So a more evolved consciousness. By that I don't mean hierarchy, I just mean having been around the block a bit longer and learn a little bit more about existence, coming in and saying, hey guys, we can do it differently, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find something for you. I'm just trying to find a picture that I can send to you that you might be able to put on screen that's about the star seed. Carry on.
What we will do is we will share links as well, obviously, when we conclude this live, so people can actually come and join, because I just think it's so exciting. It's going on, and we, just like you're talking about mycelium, we talk about the crystalline grid, the light grid, right? That it's just all there. And if you want any more connections, my dear friends, because last week we were just having a blast with the lovely Julie. CJ and I have the magpie in common, and CJ's daughter's called Rosie, so it's all there.
But you're right, yes, the light network is not a new idea, is it? It's just I'm appropriating a couple of things that we know, and that either we know, or that we feel, or that we intuit, and making them a credible kind of part of the story, so that it raises them up in their consciousness as well. Yeah,
well, we could say nothing's new because it's all in the field and it's what we're accessing, right? But where else should we go? So
I was in a couple of things that I wrote down just now while you were talking that I thought were that touched on the story and the approach that we're doing. Was the idea of value, the idea of equality of value and equality of everyone, as you were talking about, and then the idea of accepting all ways of life as well. Because for me, while we are in the story exploring opposing views and really challenging each other to do so, and arguing over them a little bit in the same way that we would over social media, but we're still keeping it respectful, don't you worry. The theme for me is still all of that. It isn't going to a place where, the aliens win, and it's not going to the place where Earth wins either. But the value aspect of it, that's another important point, that the aliens who interact with the humans in the story, because there are a couple of alien characters in the story as well. It's been quite hard for some of the I think for some of the audience to grasp as well. It's certainly hard for some people when I talk to them to grasp about the idea of there being no value model at all. So no money. Of course, when you say no money, people get into the cashless society argument, and I don't mean that. I mean no money, no idea of exchanging goods for something that is shiny and pretty, and further still, no value, no idea that X is more valuable than Y, and that has been the problem that I think a lot of people struggle with, because we are so entrenched in this world in valuing the things that drive the progress that's desired more than valuing the things that don't obviously drive the progress that's desired. And whenever I've talked to people about the concept of the no value at all, or the equal value more so in the story, they've all said to me, well, how do you maintain progress in a society like that? And my response is often, why do you need progress? You know, why do you have to have progress? Surely you only progress when, you know, when you're being chased by something that you need to get away from, or when you're trying to achieve something. If right now you're happy, why do you need to design that next new thing? You know, so that I think even that whole idea in the way that the alien society works is completely opposed to everything about us. And they talk about how, oh yeah, we do make things just at a slightly different pace than you, maybe slightly different things from you, you know. So I think that value model, the idea that every single, and the way it plays out in the story is that the rule, it's not a rule. I should say that I shouldn't say the word rule, because that's my conditioning. But the way it plays out in the story, the way that the aliens apply their value model is that if you're inputting, you can take, you can ask for anything, and they will either give it to you, help you find it, help you build it, help you create it, connect you to somebody else that can do it for you. But only if you are also inputting what you can input. Yeah. And if you're a gardener and you offer to every being on all the world, I'll help you garden if you get in touch with me, that's cool. That's great. If you're a listener and that's all you do, that's good as well. If you're, you know, a doctor as well, then great. You're inputting, and that's enough. And it doesn't matter, you know, what it is you're inputting. And I think that was one that was really tough for people to get hold of. And then the funny bit that I wanted to mention for me that I find funny, I don't know if everybody else does, is the connection between the reframing of the community lives that we have on our world. We've got this culture.
Wait, go there in a minute. No, because I want to go there in a minute. I think that's a really, really good bit. So let's just speak to this bit first, because I think it's so powerful what you're saying, and I love it, because actually so much of the conditioning on this planet currently is down to what a good job is, what a this is, what a that is, you know, what is prestigious, what is worth more than, you know, at the end of the day, it's all the value you attribute to it, right? But if each of us were able to share what we love to share, right, what we know is a gift in our world, we can do whatever it is to be, to do, to whatever, right? The only shift I can see in that is, I know I've had probably 3 or 4 different careers, if you like, in this life, where once upon a time I was really into yoga and I was teaching yoga and that was my thing, and then that evolved into coaching and that became the thing, and now I'm going into other things completely different. And it's allowing us to keep growing, not because there's an outside force saying you have to do this, you have to be something different, but just that innate desire to experience different things, right? To be a novice and then to master and then to share. And I really get with this. I love that idea that you input and take, you know, what you can ask for what you want and you can give what you want. Yeah. How does that sit? And
there's something else in this as well, is as well as you saying people have got an innate desire to explore and experience and stuff, and I think they do, and I think people have a varying innate desire to do that depending on the state of life they're at and depending on the system they're in as well. But also for me, I think there's almost a belief, perhaps as a result of the inability to find a reason to believe this, that people wouldn't help if they were free. Yeah, and there's also a belief equal to this and problematic as well, equally problematic, that people, if we didn't have organisations causing us to work and produce, we would just sit around on our asses for 80 years. I mean, would we? I mean, who would do nothing for 80 years? There's nobody in the world that would. I mean, there might be some people that would do something for 40 years and sit around for the other 40, but that's enough, you know. Probably I'm one of them, if I'm honest. But I think that those ideas that we... And I wanted to come back to, and this might be a touchy subject for people in the audience, the COVID pandemic. I'm not going to talk about any of the facts around that. But the one thing I learned from that is when people have got the time, they all help. Yeah, they do. We all saw it, and I ran a project in my local area to help coordinate the response in the local area. And everybody just helped because they had the time to do it, because they weren't working, because they couldn't work, and because also they needed to. So we saw that, and we now know the truth that humans will help each other. They've got the space and the time.
We're naturally cooperative, but we've been taught to be competitive. And I think that is where the conditioning, this, what I was saying before about struggle and survival programming versus sort of thriving and cooperating. And it's literally the difference between being fueled by adrenaline or oxytocin, because you're either seeing the world really threatening and you've got to grab everything for yourself because there's not enough for everyone. And as we've said, capitalism as we know it can really contribute to that and has played a big part. But then on the other side, you've got, you know, when we're seeing that nature is bountiful and the world actually has plenty if it's distributed in such a way that we don't need to hoard, right? We can have plenty and share from a surplus. And it's what I'm hearing, which I love about this idea that you have co-created and brought through, is just this capacity to consider new ideas people haven't thought about before, which will initially twist their melons, right? Because like you say, they can't fit it in the box that they know of. But then it's like, oh, what would that be like? What would I do? Because I certainly couldn't sit on my ass all day doing nothing. Like it's not
for 80 years. I mean, for 80, 90 years. Would
or we all just we just want to do it all. No, we don't. We actually want to contribute. And I think that I remember, like, I wouldn't call myself an anarchist per se, but I remember listening to some talks about anarchism, and like the mindset is that we would naturally self-organize, that ultimately we don't need someone to be going do this or else, because, you know, if we strip it all back, if we took everything away, all the religions, all the, this is a good spiritual person, this is a bad one, all that bullshit, and we just said, all right, can we be kind to ourselves? Can we be kind to each other? Can we be kind to the environment? Can we all agree on that? Is that acceptable for humanity?
Well, yeah, and we do have different perspectives of the word, even the word kind, don't we?
And thrive, yeah. Write those down. Let's go to your second point.
I've got it, don't worry, I won't forget it. But there's more to talk about this one. The perspective one is a really interesting issue for me. And again, it's one we're exploring in this story, because one of the characters is being very selfish with what they're doing, with how they are interacting with the aliens who are able to provide us. They're taking a very selfish approach. But the alien voice that talks to us and tells us things and reminds us of how things work is reminding us all who are angry with that person that they are doing what they should. They're inputting what they can and they're taking what they can. And so there's that tension there, because we see that person as really selfish, but are they? Are they really? I mean, they're inputting what they can and they're taking what they can. So that story plays out.
And I hear you, and I think this kind of ties into the idea that everyone in our lives is actually playing their role perfectly for us to kind of make choices around how we want to show up and be, right? But
it's just we get the external influence, don't we, of what you talked about, which is that, and there is, it's not, I don't think it's an intentional thing. I can't believe it is an intentional thing, but as in the whole of it, but there is an external influence to maintain the competitive mindset and the organized mindset as well. And that external influence does make it quite hard to discern what you were talking about, doesn't it? And to discern back to, you know, a more collaborative mindset. I think, by the way, perhaps one for another longer conversation, but I think that goes all the way back to Darwin's presentation of evolution.
Have you looked at Bruce Lipton's?
I know this is from my mum. My mum's always had a problem with Darwin. She says he's right that, you know, they did evolve step by step, but to use the word survival, the phrase "survival of the fittest" suggests intent. And it's rooted in all of that. People then believed, okay, it's the survivor of the fittest, the one who is consciously more fit. It's not like the finches went, I need to design a better beak. My beak isn't working. It just happened, didn't it? You know, and that self-organization is what we're talking about. And I think the phraseology.
It's the way our cellular. Well, I think Bruce Lipton says it really interestingly in the book. He's actually got an audio book and a book called Spontaneous Evolution, where he kind of really puts Darwin under the microscope and explains the fact that our essential nature is to cooperate rather than to be competitive. And this idea of the survival of the fittest is really how our biology, neurobiology adapts to our environment, and who is what species are able to do that in such a way that most will deal with what's ahead. But that's not my special area.
No.
What is looking at the fact that our varying perspectives is very much based, and this is an interesting thing, especially for you, because from a pregnancy point of view, we're wired and we're being conditioned from the earliest times, like pre-conception, right? And whilst we're in the womb, the way that our brain is developing, our nervous system is developing, our physiology is developing, is according to the conditions our mother perceives. Now, I've always said the mum's like a periscope that's looking around, receiving information, right, about the environment and forming the next generation, how to prepare. And either the hindbrain or the forebrain will develop more according to those conditions. Now, that will obviously shift if sight is an issue, because the senses will adapt in different ways. In the same way that if another sense was, I don't want to say impaired, but let's say impaired. So you had to actually have more acute senses for the one that isn't so dominant and balanced in the same way. But it is always, I think we have, we've kind of touched, and we're probably not.
I would say I would agree with you, because we were talking then about my mum a little bit, because her phrase that she says that Darwin's theory should have been survival by adaptation, not survival of the fittest. That's what she thinks. I would say, from my mum's perspective, and I think I can speak for her, that there might be some truth in what you said about the lack of sight, meaning that her perception was different, and it certainly has changed my perception. But also, her dad was already a real kind of original thinker, and he was always very, very independent of society and himself and everybody else, and there was nobody that could ever coerce her dad into anything at all that wasn't good. And I really think he really framed her, and that carried through to me as well, and I see it coming through in my daughter as well.
Now I wonder how many generations that's going back for you into, because my
I know how much further it goes back. Yeah. I'm sure it goes all the way back. That's
that kind of, you're wired differently. And you're reminding me of a study. So when I was teaching baby yoga, they did a study on they were looking at blind babies in particular, their response to sound. And when you actually, they were giving the example of a little girl who was, I think, 6 months old, maybe a little bit younger. She was completely blind, so her sense of sound was really acute. And if you actually looked at her hands and the way they were moving, she was conducting. It was like conducting the music before it got to the next bit. And we have super senses for everything that kind of is down a bit. There'll be something else that is up. And we're in a time of huge neurodiversity. We're exploring our identity beyond the standard gender that we were programmed into, and looking at what we identify with. And again, we can get into, it's this, or we can say it's all of this. Where do I feel, right?
Yeah.
So
completely.
Let's bring this to this idea of, because I think it's important, is what people mean by certain words, and the idea that we can use the same language, but actually our perception of what that means is quite different. So kind versus thriving, etc. Do you want to sort of talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, from my perspective, I think I've become acutely aware that almost everything that we say, and particularly where the words confer a value, like even kind confers a value, everything that's subjective has far more interpretations than anybody could ever imagine, and I think that's really, really interesting, and I think it's something we have to open our minds up to. I think the way we're exploring that in the play is so there are a couple of ways of exploring that in the play. We've got, alongside the main alien arrival story, I'm telling just a personal kind of human story about getting a new cat. Now, the purpose of that story for getting the new cat is to explore how you can communicate knowingly and emotionally and trustingly with a being with which you've got no common ground, no language, no experience, none of that. And you can genuinely with an animal, and we all know you can, but I think that's a parallel to the alien story, because of course there's quite a lot of questions in the alien story about how are we communicating with them. So, you know, I can carry that through there. And I think for me, that's really key, because when you're communicating with an animal, you are always consciously addressing your biases. Yeah, because you're not looking at that animal and going, that animal just said something rude to me, because you don't know. Yeah, so you do tend to more often think the best of animals, whereas if a human says something to you that you just didn't want them to say, whether or not it was rude, you go, bloody bastard, don't you? Because you feel attacked. And now I think there's something really key in perhaps reducing the intellect with which we interact with each other rather than raising it, you know, going with the heart and not with the mind when we're talking to each other. Because if you go with, and I struggle with this as much, as my daughter's upstairs listening to this, and I'm sure she's rolling her eyes, because I don't ever get it right for her. You know, I do 50% of the time. Sometimes I don't.
How old is she?
14, you know.
Oh, mate, yeah, you're in for it. It's going to be like,
I know. But she doesn't get it right for me either all the time. And we talk about this all the time, the idea of checking, going, are you angry with me, or are you passionate? Or are you hungry? You know, that kind of stuff. And I think that's what we do with the cat. You know, the cat goes, yeah, and you go, do you want food? Do you want water? You know, and it's just the same thing, isn't it? You don't just go to the cat. So I think for me, that whole story, that narrative that I'm telling about the cat there, is it will feel to people that it's more character and it's kind of unrelated, but it's got an really intentional subtext. And the other way we're dealing with that kind of communication aspect is through the birds story. So at the very beginning of the play, the kind of pretend premise to kind of trick into the false narrative and do the shimmy so it became real, was that the group was, for me, to be sharing a short story that I was writing every day, and that everything else in the group was real life that we're sharing just to add to the group for fun. And of course that then shifted to the aliens world arriving, but the story about the birds, a short story, is still a fictional short story that I'm still telling every day in the group, but there's some communication conversations in there between the birds and their caretaker, between the birds themselves, an exploration of the differing interpretations of freedom and security that the birds in the aviary have, and a resolution of that as well. So that, you know, is trying to explore all of those aspects as well in terms of how we get along unconsciously and shift to a world that or a way of just interacting that allows each other to be ourselves more than the way that says, do you know what, you have to be controlled to be I'm going to stop myself and say something else. A little while ago,
what did you want to say?
No, because it's connected, but I was rambling. There was a little while ago, there was a story about a school saying to their parents, sending a letter to their parents saying, you all come to our school in pajamas, have a little bit more self-respect. And I thought, from my perspective, being confident enough to go out in the real world in your pajamas to drop your kids off to school, that's self-respect. Dressing up to the nines with makeup just to go to school, that's not self-respect. That's fear. And that letter from that school, for me, was exactly that control mechanism that poor communication, lack of heart that we're trying to address.
This is the way you should be. I used to take my daughter to school in my pajamas all the time. In fact, you know, it's just one of those. It's like, oh God, I can go back to bed for an hour. But
you shouldn't even feel guilty for that, should you?
Well, the thing is, for all of us, isn't it about, I'm interested in what makes me feel good every day? What do I need to feel like good? For me, thriving means I feel okay with me, even if I'm angry, even if I'm sad, even if, you know, things are happening in my world that are not perfectly brilliant, wonderful things, that I'm good. I feel grateful. I feel resourced. I feel I can come to myself, and this inner space is a space of sanctuary. It's not somewhere of attack, right? And as you said, I think so much of our suffering, and it's worth just speaking to this, is based on what we think other people think of us or have meant by what they've said or done or whatever. And when you bring it back to the cat, it's perfect, because a lot has been said about us attributing, you know, human emotions and personality traits to animals, but there's all sorts of interesting things that go on with our energy and how our animals respond to our energy and how we respond to them, and there's so many layers of this. But
I think the owner pet, when it's a good relationship, you know, when you've got a good owner who's really taking care of their animals, I think for me it's the ideal. I think I would rather be treated like that by friends and family and partners than I would by some of the way I see humans treating each other.
Yeah, but it, like we say, it's that whole whatever filter. So, you know, going back to our pregnancy conversation, if the world's threatening, everyone's a threat, right? If the world is, you know, we've been given the impression that the world is generally a friendly place, but we do need to just be aware of how our, you know, our senses kind of respond to our environment and be curious and discerning. There's that sense of, okay, how can we, you know, very often in our childhood, we're kind of conditioned to be wary of everything, you know, everything's a threat, right? And that's coming back from generations as well of post-traumatic stress, I would call it, from wars and all sorts of other things. But now, today, looking at this, shifting the narrative, we what do we want now? Here we are, here you are, you've got this amazing concept, this play, you're using, you know, a concept, for want of a better word, against itself, or just reflecting a mirror to it and saying, look, you know,
this is what it's really like. Yeah.
And to me, that is duality collapsing on itself, because we're saying we know about this, but what else is possible? So when we bring this back to what you said, because I just loved the paradigm shift in this, in that you were going to talk about the controllers and the what goes on in the alien world in terms of
okay. So that's the one I've got written down here, is the shift is so, you know, it is a complete reframing, as I said, and even to the extent at which in our westernized world, we've got quite a lot of small community living examples of people doing proper wonderful human living. You know, you get more in places like Portugal, where it's a bit more accepted, and less here and over in other places. We've got one of our lead characters actually lives in a community living environment. But in the alien society, in the aliens network of billions of worlds, they let us know at one point in the story, it's already been told to us, so I can share it, that there are some beings that still, they let us know that in their very, very distant past, they did attempt to try control, and it just never worked because of the freedom the trees gave us. But since then, there are small enclaves of beings in their network of worlds that live in what we call little controllerties rather than communities, who do still try to order things and control things and structure things and do things, and it's fine for them. But the difference there is that the aliens let us know that not really very many other beings really enjoy going there very much. Whereas, of course, quite a lot of us would quite enjoy going to a community place. So we're just trying to reframe every single thing, and it just I find that quite amusing, that particular reframing, just the idea of and what I find it amusing is also a really important point, because people often cite the fact that the community living doesn't expand as the reason why it's not a credible way to run the world. Yeah, but the reason why it doesn't expand is because how can it within such a world that is structured this way? You can't. We know this from you know, from parenting, things like that. If you suffocate a behavior, it goes away, and you can't say that behavior wouldn't have come up. And so we're trying to reframe that by showing that controlled environment within a larger collaborative environment would also not succeed.
I love that. So the image I'm getting is, you know, you've generally got, it's almost like the flip around of this, of here, this earth. Generally got people, you know, beings living in harmony with nature, living in harmony with each other, exploring and, you know, doing what brings them joy and discovering what that is. And then you've got these small compounds, is what I'm seeing in my head, of these controlling, like condominiums, if you like, where the agreement is to live in this very controlling way within it, but that doesn't exist outside of it. And my flip around of this is actually, let's use the example of supermarkets. You know, I walk down the aisles and I look at them and I'm like, how is this food? This is not food. This is packing stuff that makes us feel full, but is generally not very health inducing, right? It's not generally regenerative. You go down the aisle with all the cleaning products and everything's toxic apart from a few little things that are not. Surely we flip this around and we say, okay, everything is non-toxic, everything is organic, fair trade, you know, the best that you can get. And then for those who really just want something awful, it's like literally in a closed door. It's like, okay, this stuff's not something to eat every day.
The truth is about this, about the capitalist and way we live, or the control way, or the organized way we live, is that the belief is that you know, that environment creates diversity of product and creates best price, where price is a thing that you value as an important aspect of managing society, which I don't. But when I look at it, it doesn't do that. What it does do is it creates all sorts of
monopoly.
As you were touching on, not only monopoly, yeah, monopolies in some situations, but as you were touching on, it creates all sorts of reasons to hoodwink people and offer shoddy products. Yeah. Now, in a world where everything's free, everything's equal value, if you've got two aliens saying, I'll clean your kitchen, and one of them says they'll do it with lovely, beautiful, lovely stuff that'll make it clean, but also naturally and everything, and one alien says, come and use toxic stuff, and they're both the same interaction, the same value for you, you're not going to choose that one. So actually, again, the idea of a collaborative society where everything is available, that is much more likely to lead to good solutions, pure solutions, because just nobody is going to take the crap solutions.
Yeah,
they only take them because they're cheaper, because they're easier, because they're served up. You touched on the supermarket, by the way. I want to bring back to that, because there's something about the supermarket thing that I didn't. My own personal desire for supermarkets would be that they would be farms, and that you would turn up and you and the one idea I carried into the story, which hasn't come up yet, is the idea that if you want to eat an animal, you've got to kill it, you've got to bone it, you've got to.
That's what my husband does. He's a hunter, so
it's fine by me, isn't it? If you want to eat an animal, you do it. If you ain't got the guts to kill it, don't eat it.
or you the other, you know, it's not either or. There's the potential that some people don't mind cooking it and handling it, while others don't mind, you know, actually killing it themselves. Like, you know, what my husband will do, and actually for him, and it's a very spiritual practice as well in the way that he operates, because it's deer management, particularly in this country, which is quite an issue. It's a spiritual, you know, he does not go and get a kick out of just going and kill it. This is not what it's about. It's
of course not.
But he will bring it back. He will literally do everything himself, including cook it and put it on the table. And like, I used to be a vegan, vegetarian, all of it for years and years and years. And it took me quite an interesting exploration of meeting my shadow and what my body needed to feel optimal, to accept that for me, some meat in my life is medicine. And I can't kill it. I don't want to have to kill it myself, to be honest, but I'm happy to cooperate with my husband and do what
I suppose I'm too black and white on that in my expression of that, but it is more to the point. It's like farm to table, isn't it? It's not. It's the packaging steps and all of that moving around the world is what the problem is. But yeah, we're exploring that idea in there. We're exploring the idea of free education, you know, self-led education in the story as well a bit. That'll be mentioned in there. We're trying to bring as much as we can in there. And the other important aspect is I want it to be interactive, and it is beginning to be. Most of the stuff is the performers. We're getting some of the audience joining in, adding their ideas. It's tough balance being somebody who believes in freedom, but trying to keep the order of a story that I'm structured around. It's really hard.
I did go on to have a look, and I was kind of looking and go, wow, okay, I need to start at the beginning here, because you can see,
I think people do. Yeah, you're right.
Comments in the story, and
it's all there. Yeah. But I think it's a struggle that for me. But I think the performers would say that I'm giving them a lot of room to be themselves within a series of, because it's not scripted at all. It's all improvised.
Are you actually pre-recording a video and then uploading it, or is it live in the space that it's all improvised?
So I've pre-prepared the storyline, the arc of the storyline. Most of the things, the events that are going to happen are pre-prepared, and some of them are ad hoc. But it's the treatment of those. Yeah, that's improvised, and then they may choose to write a text post. They might choose to do a video post. A lot of the performers are doing a video post for the engagement and stuff, and because they're actors. And some of them are doing it live, and some of them are pre-recording it because they want to. And we've also got some CGI artists working with us to add some of our alien trees to backgrounds in pictures and things like that. I've got some pre-prepared media, like fake news articles and things like that. So it's a bit of everything, I think. In answer to your question, it's a bit of everything in terms of how we're performing it.
Do you know what this is reminding me of, just quickly, because I love the macrocosm, microcosm kind of play with this. And it's like, I was talking yesterday about soul blueprint activation and how our soul pre-elects our curriculum, if you like. So before we come to this earth, but we have free will in what happens with that. And there are influences that can take us in different directions. And to me, when you're talking about having a sort of storyline, if you like, that is, you know, there as a backbone, but ultimately there is this free play within it in how it's expressed and how each character, it's just like, wow, like so multi-dimensional in that sense.
Well, yeah, I see that approach for me comes from both really enjoying improv. I'm much more interested in being on my feet than I am and reacting and interacting. I really enjoy that, but also from my professional life as a project manager, and without being boring, there are a couple of different project management methodologies, and one of them is all about self-organization, and I really like that. And so, yeah, I think for me, the idea of self-organization is a really important one to explore, and so that's something else that is important for me to talk about actually with the project, is to acknowledge that it's being done by everybody. So, you know, I've been working for 18 months before it started with creatives to get some of the media up and running, and then all the performers are doing everything for free, because of the nature of the project, the collaborative free nature. It's really important to me that we lived and breathed what it was talking. Mm-hmm. Primarily so
that example that
primarily so that if people said to me, this world couldn't work like that, I can go, I bloody well did this like that, so it can in a kind of way. But you know, it's living and breathing that, so that we know that it's achievable and that we know what it feels like to kind of live briefly in that world.
But presumably that's not taking, you know, we can do that when our rent is paid, when we're not on the street, when, you know, we've got some kind of sense of, okay, I am resourced in other ways. But I'm just going there because I know it's quite an interesting can of worms to open. But the idea for me of being the resonance of what you want to create is so important at the very start, because I see a lot of bright ideas out in the world. This is why I work primarily with creatives in the entertainment industry, is they're bringing in these amazing ideas, but effectively they're not coming from the vibration that they can really actualize it. There's an old pain story or something playing through it that hasn't been brought to the surface and cleared. And it's like, if you're going to offer something into this world, for it to really be amplified, you need to be a vibrational alignment with it, right? It's all aligned, and you're doing it from that place because this is part of this prototype that I'm hearing. Where do you want it to go though? How are you making it possible so that in the future, if people were to keep contributing their time in this way, how would it work for you in such a way that we stay true to the project?
So I'll just touch on something else before I answer that question. You touched on negative to positive, and I think that for me, and the actualization and being in the right place, it's really important for me to acknowledge also that this did come out quite a lot of trauma for me, and like personal as well as watched in the world, and not being very happy with it. And quite a long time ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was much more in the complainy frame of mind. One of those people who would be just posting stuff on Facebook that they weren't happy about. But I was always brought up by my mum to, it's all my mum, this is all my mum, it's all rooted in her. She used to say to me when I was a kid, she used to say, why are you fighting to join a game that you don't like? Go and start a new game, make it a nice one, make it a lovely one, and they'll join you when they're ready. Yeah, that's what she said. And those words came back to me about 2 or 3 years into sitting there on Facebook being a keyboard warrior. This is crap. And then I was like, hang on a minute. Why am I fighting to be in this world? And so I created this new one.
Just say it again. Why are you
fighting to be in a game that you don't like? Go and create a new game that's lovely, and they'll join you when they're ready. So she said to me when I was a kid, and I was like, yeah. But I forgot it for a very long time, for a very, very long time.
Oh, I'm just, there's so much coming through this. Go create a new game and they'll join you when they're ready. Oh, your mum is amazing.
Yeah, she is. She really is. So anyway, to answer your question in terms of how I would want to keep it going, so it's only going to last for 6 weeks. So it's got a finite beginning and end. It is a story with an end. It's not, because it's a new way of using a Facebook group. It's not. I think also that's quite something that people are struggling with as well, because it's going to stop, and that Facebook group will then be the book. Or you can then be. I'm toying with whether I'm going to turn off the comments on it so it stays as a static example or not. All of us talk about how we want to take it further. We want to do things like, we would love it. We talked privately in our group chats. We would love it, say, if a publisher contacted us and said, let's develop this into a book that we can produce everywhere. And I think I'm speaking for all of the performers. I think we'd work together to develop what we've got into a narrative book as opposed to the play it is. Similarly, any production companies that contacted us, we would love to take it further. We've also talked about doing it again on Facebook, in a year's time or 2 years' time, after reviewing it together, and maybe adjusting bits of it and adding new media and things like that, redo it again and again. Maybe it becomes a yearly experience. We don't know. We would love to do it. My sense is that so all of the performers that are in it are, I don't think any of them are full-time jobbing actors. Most of them are in a transition stage between a career, a traditional career, and a jobbing actor career, and some of them are at different stages on that. They're all the leads at the moment are very happy to do it for free because they're enjoying it thoroughly. Some of the background characters joined the project without fully paying attention, I think, to what I told them it was going to be, and then backed out when they realized it was free. It wasn't, they realized it was free. Yeah. So it's a pertinent question that, because of my approach to everything, I let things evolve and grow and develop as they go. I don't have a full answer to. But we want it to go further. We want it to get as big as we can. We would much prefer if that was organic and people just joined the group, shared it, and it just got really aware and really big, and then we then have the opportunity to develop it into something. If that doesn't happen, I'm much more likely to go to develop it in a self-publishing way. I'll still work with as many of them as I can, but I am not someone who A, enjoys self-promotion, B, is any good at it really, and C, wants to intentionally embroil myself in that world. If they come to me, if somebody comes to us and goes, we would like to do this for you, with you, we'll go, yeah, great. And we'll be like, this is how we're doing it. If you want to work with us in this way, then, not quite like that. We'll happily receive that. But I'm not going to go out there panhandling for capitalists to join me. I might well do. Yeah.
Do you know, it's a very interesting thing, because I've been coming across some beings, and we were talking about this before, because we're living in a world where the currency still is money, right? And at the end of the day, you need something to be able to fuel whatever the dream is, however it goes. But ethical capitalism, compassionate capitalism, I've heard all sorts, right? And I'm not here to judge any of it, because ultimately we are living in a world that is moving from duality into oneness, and we are reshaping the way reality is, right? And it's like, how would we like it to be? And I would love to see, for example, because I believe as our words are spells, and we're putting things in the collective, that projects like this would be picked up, and there'd be a funding pot for it. That actually means everyone involved is well resourced to be able to give their time and their energy, because it is an energy exchange. And this was what I was saying to you off camera about Starpeace Productions, because one of my intentions, like with Starpeace, is that ultimately we have the architects who are the visionaries of the new world. You fall into that category, right? Because you've got this idea that you're sharing. You're not saying it's the only way. It's a way that has come through you, right? And even though we've never communicated before, and we might have quite different ideas on things, when we actually open our hearts to really hearing each other and feeling what we're saying, we're really on the same path. I see it.
I think, yeah, very similar. Yeah.
So then you have the builders, if you like, of Paradise Earth. The builders who are kind of the therapists, the healers, the coaches, the teachers that are supporting people to make that shift, that need that support and want that support to do it, so they can conceive of this idea and this shifting in consciousness. And the energizers, who are simply the audience that is choosing to turn their attention away from the moaning, which is, what we've all done in our time, and it's very compelling because anger is quite a compelling force, to, wow, this is amazing. Have you heard about this? Check this group out. Like, this is amazing. And for me, it was hashtag Starpeace. I want to get going viral, because anything I put that to, I'm like, I love this. I want to see more of this. It's like my way of saying, yes, let's have more in our social media channels, etc. Let's explore where we can go. But part of it is working with high profilers who have funding, are willing to sponsor, are willing to add their skills, because they're like, I want to act in that. I want to roll in that, I want to, whether you call it joint venture in this, put some funding in order to be able to, see this grow, and then take a little bit from it as a result of putting my funding in. Like, there's so many different creative ways. You've been a project manager, right? There's lots of different ways to do things, but it's being able to say, all right, this idea, I would love to see, like, in the center. I want to see, at this point, mainstream entertainment have this kind of thing, whether it's a new Netflix, whether it's on Netflix, whether whatever. We also know, though, that when others get involved and money is involved, storylines get adapted to fit narratives that suit them better, and before you know it, not acceptable. So that's why the private funding is so important, right? That you've got resonance with venture capitalists, if you want to call them that, angels, angel investors that are willing to say, I want my money going to something that I really value. In my world, for me, a percentage of the higher end work I do is to go into a funding pot called Starpeace Productions, so that ultimately there is the opportunity to get projects off the ground, to put people connected into each other that want to progress these things for the highest good, always with the creator, because you're the creator or co-creator bringing this through, having that sort of the microphone, if you like, to say, this is where I would like to see this go at this point.
Well, the team would be very keen to talk to anybody that could help and support us in them putting forward what we're doing. It would be an interesting conversation to see how to see how it worked with everybody, because there's a lot of voices in it already. In terms of longer term vision for me, is if it makes money, they all get a fair response to that. They all know it's not my aim with the project. It's the aim of the project is the message more than it is. I think if I'm honest, the team would be much more interested in people who wanted to produce or publish or support that than people who wanted to finance it. And certainly, without sounding like a too hard-nosed, I wouldn't be very comfortable with people who are financing to get influence. That would not sit well with me. No, happy to receive money if people want to. Happy to receive. Yeah. But I struggle with that financing for influencers' purpose, if you see what I mean. I've always struggled with that. Yeah,
and you do, but that's the beauty of you basically being you, is you get to decide where this flows for you, right? And it's like what feels good for you, what you want to bring in. But all of us, when we have an idea, then meet where we have resistance and where we are not quite lined up with our main message. And that's what I love about it. It's like, oh, here's something I hadn't thought about before. Here's something
we definitely want it to grow. We definitely want it to go big. Yeah. It's just,
and that's the paradox, because you know, any massive movie, for example, has a load of money pumped into it. It doesn't, it just has to. And the more I've been learning about publicity and how, for want of a better word, fake it's literally money, right? And it is, when you accept that, first of all, you go through this place of like, God, is that it? I feel really duped. And then on the other hand, you're like, okay, well, that's the game. Those are the rules of the game on this level. If I want to get here, I need to pass this level. So I'm going to...
It's too close. It's too... I've got another call in a minute as well, by the way. If we need to talk afterwards, we can. It's, for me, I do understand what you're saying. It's the rules of the game and it's important to play it sometimes. But for me, it's too close to it's too close to taking the vibration away from the alignment of the approach. And it really is key for me that what you were talking about there is that the project has got a real key message about a different way of life. And it's absolutely key that everything about the project maintains that vibration, that energetic connection, however one you say, that philosophy, that theory, that approach for me. And that's why I didn't want to sound hard-nosed about not wanting finance to come with influence, because in this world that we're creating, that's not what happens. People don't influence and change what you want to do. They either help because they want to, or they don't because they don't. And that's it. So you might find me answering in a different way. If it were a different project that didn't have the same message, I might be like, yeah, give me all your money, go on. But I'm not. I'm really. You see what I mean? Yeah.
Well, for you now, really, to keep that message pure, from what I'm hearing, it means more people actually seeing it, more people kind of being in the group, if you like, because their influence in this sense isn't about money, it's about their attention, right? Like
about their attention, their time, their input, their energy and support that spreads it. And because that is how we grow the world, is through being willing to help each other. I've got this problem with this idea of people pleasing. People are complaining that people pleasing is a bad thing, and I think to myself, in my reframing mind, what if we all people pleased? Yeah, if we all.
But we also pleased ourselves, right? Because we ourselves out,
please
right?
ourselves and people pleased, then the world would be happier. But if we go, do you know what? And it's true, in this world that we live in, I've just picked up a bit of fluff off the floor. In this, I need to do the hoovering. In this world we live in, people pleasing is damaging because you don't get it back, and but that doesn't mean that people pleasing is bad. It just means that doing it in this environment is bad. Yeah,
it's contextual. This is the thing between what you're saying about subjective, and ultimately everything is in this world to a degree because of our mindset. But let's leave it there, because I know you've got to go and we've got to bring tell us, because we will put it in the links anyway, the name of the Facebook group where they can come and join and be a part of this and witness it and add to it.
It's called The Now, the World's First Facebook Play.
The Now, the World's First Facebook Play. So anyone who wants to jump on board, I think I've already gone in, but I'll double check I have.
You have, yeah.
CJ, it's been such a joy to have you.
Been lovely talking to you as well. Yeah, thank you for your time.
My world.
It's okay. Thank you for coming to me. It's really great. Will we get a chance to chat afterwards? You said, but I know I've got another call now. If I finish my call up in half an hour.
I'll finish this so we don't continue it here, and I'll send you a message. All right, but everyone, if you enjoyed, we know you enjoyed this. Just put your comments. Let us know how it's blown your mind. Let's energize this, because this is Starpeace in action, my love. Lots of love.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.